Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Friday morning coffee chat. My name's Rod from the Learn to Paint Academy. And welcome. This is our Friday morning coffee chat and your chance to ask any questions you have about art, learning to paint, Learn to Paint Academy, or the business of art, or life in general. We'll try our very best to answer them. Can't answer everything, of course, but if we can, we certainly will. So welcome, everyone. Good to see you all here. Good morning, Sarah in Virginia. G'day, Gary. A bit warmer today in Wallabada. G'day, Sharon over in Auckland. Morning, Jan, Victoria Point, and Janet in Fort Wayne. Got a lot of forts over there. Morning, Teresa in West Virginia, and Tatiana in Florida. G'day, Becky in Oklahoma, and Badia in South Florida. Welcome. Morning, Marg in Massachusetts. G'day, Gail in Geelong. Jeanette, Chile in Auckland. And good morning, Linda. And everyone else, say g'day. Tell us where you're tuning in from. We'd love to know. Oh, Facebook's added a new feature. How about that? So this is our regular Friday morning coffee chat, and your chance to ask me any questions at all. I don't have a lot to go through today. I've got one little thing I want to show you, and then I'm going to open up the questions. We'll probably only go for about 40-45 minutes today, unless we've got a ton of really good questions. So hopefully you brought your very best questions with you. So if you're over on Facebook, say good day. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Very strange setup on Facebook this morning. There we are. Good morning, Yvonne. How are you in WA? G'day, Anne. And good morning, Betty in Melbourne. Hope you're doing well. Let me have a look what's happening on this one. There we are. Okay. For some reason, the comments weren't coming through. Morning, Sherry in Leander, Texas. Teresa in Nova Scotia. Welcome. Hey, Tam. Jenny, good morning in Melbourne. Morning, Carleen. It was a bit foggy here. 4 degrees start. No good for drying and painting my boards, but I started painting them yesterday. That's going to happen sometimes, Carleen. Life gets in the way. Hey, Sandra in St. Augustine, Florida. And Celine in Cornwall, Ontario. Welcome. The other Cornwall at the moment has got all the big wigs there, planning and plotting and scheming, which is probably good for Cornwall. Inject a bit of money in there. Morning, Mary in the Midlands of Ireland. Welcome. G'day, Peter. Present. Thanks for making yesterday's replay available. Very valuable. My pleasure, Peter. That was the replay of the how to get started selling your artwork. And g'day, Kelly. How are you? All right. Morning, Colin. Feels like 10 degrees in Dapto. Ooh, well, it was about 5 here this morning. Very chilly. Morning, Wanda in sunny Honolulu. Beautiful. Teresa says, we'll just hang off on questions just for the moment because I haven't woken up yet. Whoa with the questions. But just make a note to ask again in case I miss it, Teresa. Morning, Foxy. Linda, how are you feeling? I'm still not feeling 100%, Linda, but I'm going to get better soon. I've had a combination of challenges, and one of the big ones has been I've had massive back issues and hip issues, and I've just been in constant pain, and as a result of that I haven't been sleeping, and as a result of not sleeping I've been feeling run down, and it just becomes this snowball effect, and it's been going on for a couple of months. So trying to get my back right, challenging, very challenging, and that's meant I haven't been able to exercise, so then I put on weight, which then adds to the back pain, back issues. So anyway, it's not a whinge session, Rod. Shush. But thank you for asking, Linda. Morning, Sujata in Nevada. Welcome. On the road and signal is not so good, but try to listen as much as I can. Well, appreciate you being here, Sujata. Teresa said it's 7 p.m. here. And Gail, however, I'm working on the cow. Good on you. A couple of good cows been posted up in the members area. Well done, everyone. Man, we're going to finish off. I'll finish off my cow next week. But there are a few parts of the cow around the legs that I'm going to have to stand right in front of the camera for. So I might do them in between next session, and I'll just talk you through what I've done. It's going to be impossible for me to do them and not block the camera. So, g'day, Manju. How are you in Canada? Welcome. Morning, Kelly in Iowa. And all right. Well, as I said, I don't have a lot to go through. We did a live stream yesterday, which is all about how to get started selling your artwork. If you missed it and you want to see the replay, contact our support desk and they shall give you the link, which will keep that up for about a week, and then we'll close it down. As many of you know, I like books about art. I like reading about art, and I'm building myself a nice little library here, which I'm very excited about. But there's one book that I think might be worth... good morning, Kay. How are you? Bet it's chilly on Mount Tambourine this morning, or Tambourine Mountain. I always get it around the wrong way. Morning, Margaret in Victoria Point. Home from the dentist. Yeah, so I like art books. And I'm always buying art books, and I don't read them all, but I like to dip into them, and I like ones with pictures, so I can look at them all, right? But one in particular, which I purchased recently, is this one, The Art Spirit by Robert Henry. Now, I haven't read much of it, and I intend to, but I think this is a compilation of notes by Marjorie Ryerson, which, there's a lot of pretty famous books around which are not written by the artists themselves, but they're a compilation of the notes that their students took in classes and workshops, and they compile them together into a book format, which I think is quite interesting. So you're getting the thoughts of the artist filtered through the brain of the people who are taking the notes, right? So that's always interesting. And I wonder whether that artist, if they were alive today and read through the notes, and whether that was how they'd like to see their work portrayed. It's quite an interesting thought. So Robert Henry, The Art Spirit. This is a second impression. Only an art book would use the word impression, right? I think that mean the second edition or second print, maybe, I don't know. So I was just flicking through this morning, and I don't know how well this will translate, but I just thought I'd read you a little passage from here. And this is, various thoughts on painting and being an artist and so on, type of things I like to talk about. And I don't know how well this will translate, but basically this passage is talking about this idea of not just being a copier, not just developing technical skills and then just copying a photo directly, right? Or copying a subject in front of you directly, but rather using our skills to extract the essence from a subject, right? And to layer over just making a representation of it with artistry, right? And feeling and emotion and capturing the essence of it. And to me, I think this is the evolution above. Once you master the fundamentals and you do 1,000 paintings and you become really good, you become a very good artist. But how do you become a great artist? And that's an intangible gap that not everyone's going to be able to bridge that gap, right? Anyone can become technically very good as an artist, I believe. If you study the fundamentals and you paint a lot, and you're diligent about it and you're consistent, then I believe anyone can become a very good artist. But not everyone's going to become great. There's an intangible element there, which is the artistry. It's where you use your imagination to see something in the subject which is more emotive, or has a story or conveys a message that isn't directly in the subject itself. This is where the artist layers over the subject a part of themselves, right? And I think this is a really important development that we should all work towards as we progress our technical skills. So this passage is talking about not just copying, and so I'm going to drop into part of it, so it kind of might not make sense initially. But so it starts out with the question: why do we love the sea? It is because it is some potent power to make us think things we like to think. And now he's talking about still life painting, right? A still life in great art is a living thing. The objects are painted for what they suggest, right? So not just literally copying it, but what does the object suggest? What's the emotive sort of component of it? And their presentation has no excuse if it is not to carry to the mind of the observer the fancy they aroused in the artist, right? So Shazam was often talking about painting his sensations rather than painting the subject, what that subject stirred up in him, the sensations it created in him, right? So, so this is a similar sort of concept. So he goes on to say, if they do not do this and are but simply wonderfully well copied, then there is no communication between the artist and the observer. And the latter gets no more than he would if he were to see the same things in nature. Okay. So in other words, you know, I say this often, don't just copy a photo. A photo is used as a starting point, right? But we have to add a layer of ourselves into it and convey something in it, right? So for those of you who are looking to go on and sell your artwork and things that we talked about yesterday, in time you'll develop your own voice, but that voice will be about bringing out your essence of the way you see things, the way you see the world, right? And I think this is a really important development. So then he goes on to say, when a student comes before his model, his first question should be, what is my highest pleasure in this? And then why? All the great masters have asked these questions, not literally, not consciously perhaps, but they've asked the questions. And with them, this highest pleasure has grown until their great imagination, they have come to something like a just appreciation of the most important element of their subject, having eliminated the lesser qualities. With their prejudice for its greater meaning, in other words, you know, the emotional side of it or the story or, you know, a greater meaning than just the subject itself, their eyes take note only of the lines and forms which seem to be the manifestation of the great meaning. And this is what he calls selection. And the result is to extract information out of a subject rather than literally copying it. You know, one thing to have very good technical skills and be a good copier, but it's another thing to be able to extract the essence out of a subject and to be able to convey that in a way that shares something of ourselves as the artist. And that's what true artistry is, I think. So if you're interested in that type of contemplation, The Art Spirit by Robert Henry, highly recommended. I haven't read it all, but I've been dipping into it and finding little gems like that, which I just thought I'd pass on to you this morning. So you'll find that on Amazon. All right. Hopefully that was of interest to you. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Okay, Facebook is not updating comments today. G'day Pauline in Wales, and good morning Anne over in Perth. Jeanette in Perth as well, g'day. Good morning Gary Taylor. 3 mornings in a row, this is looking too much like work. Well, work for me, Gary, I don't know about for you, mate. Morning Pauline, just wanted to tell you how much I enjoyed your master's analysis of Brian Cook, also the film of you talking to him. Oh, thank you, Pauline. Yeah, I really enjoyed that as well. For those that don't know, Brian Cook was one of my mentors that I started taking workshops from, and he passed away late last year. However, just before he passed away, we were making plans for him to come to my studio, and we were going to film him doing 4 different painting projects. But he passed away, before he could get here. But we did develop the 4 painting projects, and he painted them, and we took step-by-step photos and so on. And I'm going to start filming them, and we'll make those available to full members in the members area soon. And if you're in the Brisbane area, Gold Coast, we're going to do a series of workshops down at Wisteria Cottage on those 4 projects. So, yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed that, Pauline. Carlene says, have you seen a physio? Carlene, I've seen So many different types of people, you wouldn't believe it. And there's only one person I've seen that actually has made any difference and really got to the heart of the problem. So, and he wasn't a physio. The physios I went to were no benefit at all. Unfortunately. So, morning Darlene in Georgia, welcome. Morning Winnie. Morning Rosalie, welcome. And all right, we'll open up to questions shortly because, as I said, we're going to keep it a little bit shorter this morning. So if you've got questions, feel free to start typing them in. G'day Barb in Canada. Teresa tuning in from Nova Scotia. I got 2 reminder dings for this Q&A, but I'm here. Glad you're here, Teresa. Morning Diana. Diane, rather, from Saskatoon in Canada. That's a mouthful. Morning Laurel in Chindira, in New South Wales. Sounds like a valuable read. I'm guilty of sometimes copying a photo if it sings to me, so we'll set myself a challenge to evolve that more. Yeah, it's good to be aware of it, isn't it? You don't ever just want to copy. I think there's, the true part of being an artist is to really develop a scene beyond what it was. Pardon me. All right. Teresa says she's been watching videos about various artists and examples of their works. Fantastic, Teresa. We do a series called the Masters Analysis in the members area, Learn to Paint Academy. And our most recent one was... Who was our most recent one? Wasn't Isaac Leviton? Come on, brain. No, it'll come to me in a moment. Morning, Marg in Bendigo. Linda says she appreciates little gems like that. Good on you, Linda. Gary says, when we are talking about small paintings on eBay, let's say 9 by 12, which I like for land and seascapes, yeah. I'm researching a supplier of 120. A supplier of, you mean boards? Is that what you're referring to? 6 month supply. I'm thinking if I can get slimline stretch canvas and put eyelets and wire on for the extra $4 costs, I can say ready to hang. But that's an issue. This would have to go in a box like this. Okay, so what Gary's talking about there is he's joined the Artist Business Academy and he's gearing up to start producing paintings for selling. And our sort of strategy is to do a slightly higher volume, lower dollar value, smaller paintings just to get rolling and get started, right? And start building an audience. And the question he's asking is whether to use stretch canvas because he can then advertise them as ready to hang, as opposed to what I teach is to just use panels, right? Because panels, the stretch canvas, right, are going to be this wide. When you've got 150 of them, you start accumulating a storage problem, right? Even before that for some people. And so that's the first issue with stretch canvas. The second issue is that when you ship a stretch canvas, you have to package it in the right way. So otherwise what will happen is when it goes into the post, things get thrown. So everything that goes in the post, they're not that careful with it. Even if you put fragile around it, they don't care. They don't look. They get thrown into a bag. The bag gets dumped out onto the floor or onto a table. That gets thrown onto a conveyor belt that goes into another. So a stretch canvas has to be packaged right. And the way I found that I still do today, is to use heavy bubble wrap around the painting and then to cut 2 sheets of MDF board that are slightly bigger than the bubble wrap painting and put them on either side and then tape that up really tight around it, right? So the MDF board then protects it and then brown wrapping paper around that. So that's what I would do with a stretch canvas. But, starting out, but the problem with that is you've got more storage space required, which may or may not be a problem, but you've definitely got longer time to package it and so on. So just be mindful of that. If that doesn't bother you, then MDF board is the key. But it's easier with panels when you're starting out. So that's what I'd suggest to somebody who's looking for a a way of just getting into the rhythm of starting to produce and sell their artwork, then panels are definitely easier. All right, Becky says, definitely interested in inspiring. Good on you, Becky. Glad you enjoyed it. Gail says, nice thought, and I agree. We must let our artist soul shine through. Absolutely, Gail. That's so important. Gary says, the Brian Cook stuff rocks. It does. He was a brilliant artist, and very hit and miss. A lot of palette. This is what attracted me to him. Why I started going to have workshops with Brian was because he was using the palette knife, and I like that sort of hit and miss and slightly random effect rather than really neat. And he was a master at that, and he got better with age, I think, which is good. Hope for all of us. Morning, Nina in San Diego. Good to see you too. Carlene said I switched chats. Carlene's here, she's there, she's everywhere. Tatiana says, I totally agree. Why to make another photograph? We need to let the artist inside of us out. Absolutely, Tatiana. Sherry says, Facebook's acting up. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Facebook. They've changed something, and the comments aren't coming through properly. So if you are on Facebook, but you're a member of the Learn to Paint Academy, jump across into the members area, and we'll get that'll work better. I'm going to drop Facebook sometime in the next few months. Yesterday, when we did the live stream for the Artist Business Academy, it wasn't on Facebook. It was just on a page on our site, and I think it worked pretty well. So we'll probably end up dropping Facebook soon. I'll still promote it on Facebook and so on, and give you the link there. But Badia says, do you think an artist can start out interpreting the subject? Or does that come after learning the basics and learning to copy an image? Good question, Badia. I think you need to get a good grounding in the fundamentals of good painting, right? So the way I look at it is the more method of painting is about simplification. It's about reducing the overwhelm and helping you to get really focused on just doing a few things well, right? So you learn the more method of painting and start to apply that. Then you really dig in deep into the fundamentals, composition, values, colour mixing, brushwork, and really master those, right? And then you've got the concept of 1,000 paintings, which will help you become, if you do 1,000 paintings in 3 years, which is the practice side, you'll become very good, right? So I think you're better off to have a good grounding in all of that before you really try and start interpreting and expressing yourself. But during that process, you can still start to bring out your inner expression, right? But you don't want to make the mistakes. There's a lot of people who go and they try abstract painting and they never study things like values and composition. And you can see a bad abstract artist who doesn't have that grounding, but you can see a really good abstract expressionist who knows about values and they know about composition, right? So they're using a dominant shape in there, so you can actually see the difference between the two. So I think everyone should get a really good grounding in fundamentals, and then you can progressively over time start to develop yourself from there as an artist. Gary, I'm going to ignore that comment, mate, but I appreciate you wanting to help. I don't necessarily agree. Valerie, I missed yesterday's meeting because I didn't get the email. That's okay if you missed it, Valerie. You can always just contact our support desk and they'll give you the link. Teresa said, I've almost completed the master's analysis. Terrific, Teresa. Good on you. Morning, Sonia. Sonia, question. I'm a bit confused with brush sizes. I need to buy new 1-inch brushes. Not sure what size this is when ordering online. So if you have a look at brushes, and this is why I hardly ever give out the size, right? This one says it's a number 6. But the problem is, if I tell somebody it's a number 6 and they can't find this brand, they get a different brand. Every manufacturer uses different numbering system, right? So it's really largely irrelevant unless we're all using the same brand of brush. There's no standards in brushes with sizes. So for that reason, I just tell people, look, you want a big one? I use a big flat brush. I use a medium one, which would be half that, and sometimes a small one. Right? 3 different flat brushes. And a script liner and a palette knife, right? That's pretty much what I use. So the numbers, there's no standardization of brush size numbers, and that's why I don't give them out. People often ask, but I think unless you're buying the same brand of brush that I am in the same series, then it's not going to be helpful necessarily. Thank you, Sherry. It was indeed Alfred Sisley, one of my favourite impressionists. Appreciate that. Meryl said, someone mentioned eyelets for the back. D-hooks are better and flat. Yes, definitely use D-hooks. You'll find that a far better result. By the way, what constitutes a master? I don't know. I think you can see a painting. You can see the difference in a painting between somebody who has a level of mastery, right? They've mastered their craft over time, versus somebody who hasn't. I think that with a reasonably keen eye, we can see the difference between the two. But you know, what constitutes a master? I don't know. And who gets to call? Who gets to appoint somebody as a master versus not a master? I don't know about that either. I think what we want to do is work towards a level of mastery, and that's a never-ending journey. I don't think you ever arrive at a point where, well, that's it. I'm a master now. Now, there are certain art societies around where they do actually appoint people as masters, right? So in this area here where I live, there's the, I don't know if it's the Australian Pastel Society or whether it's just a local Queensland Pastel Society, but they have allocated certain members the title of Master Pastelist, right? Which is interesting. They must have their own criteria on how they come up with that. I don't know what that is. Colin says, can you paint acrylics or oils over gouache? Good question, Colin. I've not tried it. Don't know. Don't know the answer, I'm afraid. Okay. Don't know the answer. I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is, why would you want to? In what scenario would you want to? I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know the answer. It seems like Facebook's quite jerky. Celine says, Darlene said, brilliant gem from the book. Yes, I quite enjoy little passages like that. Celine says, very helpful to hear. I'm frustrated that I don't have that something unique yet. I need to paint about 900 more. Well, yeah, I mean, maybe it's 900, maybe it's 90, who knows, you know, before that unique voice starts to appear. Who knows? I mean, just enjoy the process and eventually over time it will appear. Kathy said, enjoyed these encouraging comments to put ourselves into our art. Yes, absolutely, Kathy. Morning, Marty, Missouri. Shirley in Kentucky, welcome. G'day, Al. Afternoon here. What brand of acrylics were you talking about that reconstitutes? That's the Artilia Interactive Paints. You can rehydrate them. Thank you, Peter. Peter informing me, Sicily. Linda says, love the Moore method. Are there other colour groups recommended for a limited palette? Wondering how to brighten my paintings. Well, yeah, I mean, the combination of blue, red and yellow that you use will determine how bright or not bright your overall painting is going to be, right? I use the particular combination of ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, yellow ochre because I think they're well suited to landscape type painting. If I was going to do more expressive, colourful type painting or abstract, I'd probably be using cobalt blue, cadmium red and a cadmium yellow, maybe. So you have to experiment to find the palette that suits you, right? Jenny says, Rod, you mentioned on Wednesday that adding white to lighten can sometimes leave the painting looking chalky. Is there any way of fixing this? Or is there another way to get the lighter colour? So one way to get a lighter colour is to add yellow. Yellow is a lighter value, right? So the cadmium yellow light that I have on my palette is partly there because I can lighten a value. I can create a lighter value by using that instead of white, and it retains a bit of warmth. So, but if you do use white and it goes a bit chalky and a bit cold looking, just add a little bit of yellow or a little bit of red into it. Just a pinhead is all you need, and it'll just warm it back up. Good question though, good question. Are panels and MDF the same? Asks Anne. Well, not necessarily, Anne. You could have cardboard panels, you can have canvas wrap panels, you know, like Montmartre produce cardboard with a canvas wrap. MDF is a piece of actual board, so not necessarily the same, but in effect the same. Depending on the quality of panel you use, canvas panel may or may not be archival, whereas MDF, if you prepare it the right way, should be archival. Midge is saying Facebook's fine, that's good. Might have settled down. Celine says, I agree. I still find I'm not light enough with acrylics and my paintings tend to dark and dreary and I spend a lot of time correcting. Yeah, I mean, acrylics are tricky because they dry a tone darker. So you'd have to therefore paint everything a tone lighter, right? Which is part of the reason why I recommend if you're painting with acrylics right now and you're frustrated with things like that, try water mixable oils because they dry true to the colour. Pardon me. Anne says, do some frames not have enough depth to hold 3mm MDF and the frame's original backing board with the clips, etc. behind it? Possibly. Just bear with me for 1 second and I'll show you something. Hang on for 1 sec. I'm just going to... Okay, so this is the frame here. You've got these what we call flexi pins in here. Okay, so if most of them are designed where it'll take a 3mm board and the backing board here, right? Most of them are designed that way. If they're not, if it's too tight or whatever, you can pull these out with a pliers, and you can buy a flexi pinner, and you can use that and redo all the pins, right? So I don't know how much they are, maybe $100 or something. You buy the little pins and you can redo them. So that's pretty easy to do. Morning, Diana. All right. Morning, Kathy. Do you self-framed or just ship the panel? It depends, Laurel. It depends on what stage you're at and so on. When I started out, I just sold panels, right? Because that was easy. So I started out doing what was easy, and I progressively got more complex from there. Today I sell framed and large double stretch canvas and so on. But I don't recommend that for people who are just starting out necessarily. I think you want to keep it as easy as possible. And when I started, I wasn't selling them framed. But you know, then I progress after I figure out how to do the shipping and so on. Then I started buying these sort of frames and selling little frame paintings and things like that. So it really depends on where you're up to and so on. Morning, Barb in Morning Peninsula, and the other Barb in Canada says, "How do we convince our better half that we are not trying to replicate a photo?" That's a good question, and I think probably the challenge there is how to convince the better half not to get involved in our artistic endeavours in general. I don't know how to deal with that one, Barb, I'm afraid. Morning, Chrissy in Wollongbar. Welcome. What was the book on composition that you recommended during the Learn to Paint challenge? There's a couple. Hang on a second, I'll go and grab them for you so we can re-recommend them. One moment. There's two books I'd recommend. If I can find them, that is. Right, well of course I can't find them, so I shouldn't have volunteered to go and see. One of them is Carlson's Guide to Landscape Painting. Carlson's Guide to Landscape Painting is one. And the other is Edgar Payne. Let me look up Amazon and I'll just get the correct name for you. Edgar Payne has a great book on composition. Edgar Payne. Composition of Outdoor Painting. There we go. So Edgar Payne, Composition of Outdoor Painting. And then the other one is Carlson Guide to Landscape Painting. Okay, they're the two books I'd recommend. Carlson's Guide to Landscape Painting. There's an original copy on Amazon for $955. So they're the two books I'd recommend on composition initially. Okay. Where are we up to here? Scrolling back. Can you, Caroline says, the boards take a lot of prep, an extra paint cost, but hopefully worth it in the end. I have a lot of boards to paint. They do take a bit of work, but I've found that my average cost was only a few dollars once I got into figuring out how to do it properly. A few dollars per panel. Stretch canvas is going to be a fair bit more than that, probably double or triple that price, which doesn't sound much, but when you do 200 paintings a year, it starts to add up, yeah? Morning, Donna in Cairns, welcome. Sharon says, can I use interior house paint acrylic undercoat? Yes, that's what I use as a sealer. Sharon, absolutely. So one coat front and back, and then 2 coats of gesso on the front. Yeah, Gary's recommending 3-in-1 sealer. And Sonia recommends 4-in-1 sealer. I don't know what mine is, but it's probably something like that. What was the brand of acrylics that reconstitutes? That's Artilia Interactive. Peter says switch channels. Yeah, no, I don't. Thank you, Carlene. Tatiana says, I really enjoy painting on MDF boards. Spent the whole weekend cutting, sealing, and gesso my boards. Very good, Tatiana. And there's something magic about preparing your surface, from the ground up, like being involved in every aspect of a painting, producing a painting. At one time I had framing equipment. I just didn't have the space for it. When I get a bigger studio than this one, I'll buy framing equipment again, and I'll create my paintings from raw material to finished product. And I quite like that sort of artisan sort of approach to things. Can you say the name of that Flexi Pinner type thing? Well, I just know it as a Flexi Pinner. There's a brand on here called Fletcher, but most art supplies stores will carry a Flexi Pinner of some description. So just go to your art supply store and ask them what, this one's probably 20 or 30 years old, so you probably, I don't know if that company's still around. Caroline said, I noticed when I was painting the MDF boards that the corners are fragile. One corner was chipping away. Does that happen much? Hasn't really happened to me a lot. Occasionally you get one that does that. I think it probably depends on how you cut it, and if you're using a good quality cutter. So that's why I always get a company to do the cutting for me, because they have a wall cutter. So if you're using a little hand saw at home or something, then yeah, you probably have more issues like that. So look, for every 100 MDF boards that you make, there's going to be a small amount of waste. Some of them just won't work. What is your feeling about colour recipe books? I kind of think they would inhibit learning to... Yeah, I don't personally like them, Gary. I think it's worthwhile doing colour charts so that you understand how your colours work together. As we talk about in the colour mixing course, and I've got some other colour chart ideas we're going to add into that at some point. But actual recipe books where you're looking up a colour mix, I think that makes it too easy for you not to learn how to mix properly, and as you say, to have that be an unconscious process. I think that's the real important part. Carlo says, does the one coat have to be painted thick? I have 4-in-1 sealer. With the house sealer, just to seal the board, I just do a reasonably thin coat of that front and back, okay? And then I do 2 thicker coats of gesso. Linda says, if an original acrylic painting is done on stretch canvas and varnished, is it better not to frame it under glass? You don't need to frame acrylic paintings under glass. No. Glass is really used when you have paper, when your surface is paper, or card, like you might have a matte board. That's when you put it under glass, okay? Which is why most watercolour paintings end up under glass. But I would try and avoid doing anything under glass if I can. If you're trying to sell your paintings, that is, because shipping glass increases the degree of difficulty and potential problems. Okay. Where are we up to here? Gary said, would placing a dark next to a colour you want to lighten work? Yes, absolutely, Gary. I mean, colour is a relative thing. It has an absolute value, but the way our eye perceives colour is a relative thing. So if you want to make a colour really bright and pop out, like a really warm highlight, then surround it with lots of darks. Absolutely right. Yeah, and vice versa. So yes is the answer to your question, because the way our eye sees things is in relation to what's around it and next to it. Teresa said, I'd love to know how to create mist or fog. I currently use acrylic, but you have me fairly convinced to switch to WMA. Well, maybe we'll do a fog painting soon. I've got a couple of photos from Wales where every time I've been there, it's been foggy. So perhaps we will do that soon. Next week we're going to finish off our cow, but maybe the live streams after that we will do some fog scenes. My pleasure, Teresa. Morning, Julie. How are you? Woof woof. Absolutely need to do some boards this afternoon. Yes, and I think it's just one of those things you just, once every 2 or 3 months you go and get boards and you gesso them up and stuff. I actually really enjoy the process. I've got a whole lot out here now which I'm going to start to gesso up. In Australia, our financial year is the 1st of July, so we're through to the 30th of June. So we're about to end this current financial year and start a new one on the 1st of July. And I haven't been doing anywhere near as much of my own painting as I'd like to, and selling my paintings. So from the 1st of July, I'm going to start really ramping up my own painting. And so I've got 30 or 40 boards there I'm gessoing up, and I'm going to get back to doing what I'm teaching you guys to do, is to paint regularly, make them available in marketplaces, and build your social media. So I'm going to be doing a lot more of that, and I'm going to be documenting how I go from the 1st of July. And my goal is to get to, say, a 6-figure sales volume in the next 3 years, starting from this 1st of July. So we'll see how we go. Hopefully I'll be able to manage my time with what I'm doing with the Learn to Paint Academy and so on. Kathy said, I'm looking coy that I have a handy hubby that will be able to do frames. That's awesome. Yes, utilize your better half if you have one, and leverage them for as much as you possibly can. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? But you know what I mean. Okay. Hey Meryl, my pleasure. Gary said, I've got boards at $3.85, 3.5mm canvas lines, triple gesso. That's in each price, so I can probably crunch them on a bit of that for quantity. That's probably double the MDF price, but it's, look, if you can get somebody else to make you up, so what are you saying, that they've got canvas on one side, have they? $3.95, that's 85, that's pretty good value, I think. If you don't have to gesso them and that yourself. What size tub of gesso do you use to buy bulk, to do bulk panels? I don't know. Let me go and grab my gesso tub. You definitely don't want to buy the small ones if you're doing lots of them. So this is the thing, when you start to work in volume, bigger volumes, you save yourself a fortune. Not initially, but over time, right? So this is my gesso. This is the gesso I use. It's Artilia, traditional gesso primer, and it's 4 litres, right? So you get a fair few panels out of 4 litres. But if I was to buy 4 1 litres, I'd be paying 40% more than buying a big 4 litre one like that. So that's what I use. Okay, Sonia says, doing the cow painting along with the live stream, do you think you could do something different like this every now and then? Yeah, absolutely, Sonia, yeah. I definitely I've got some good flower photos, so we'll do some flowers and stuff as well. Hey Marie, I'm glad you find the tips priceless. That's wonderful to hear. Okay, back on Facebook. Facebook had done something funky to the site, so it's if I'm missing your comments, I do apologise if you're on Facebook. Good morning, Serena, in cold Greenmount. Kathy said, I miss the thickness you use for the boards. What thickness do you use? 3 millimetres. So I don't know how that translates into inches and so on, but in Australia it's 3 mil. Okay, it's that thick, pretty thin. But you'd have to convert that into your local measurement on Google. Google's good for that type of thing. About 1/8 of an inch, says Teresa. There you go. Very handy to have all you guys providing answers like that. Caroline says, I went to a company selling ranch sliders. They gave me 3 mil MDF packing for free. I'm hoping they'll be okay to use while I'm learning. Oh, that's fantastic if you're getting that for free. Often, frame shops will have offcuts of MDF board as well that they throw out in the bin. So if you've got a good relationship with a local framer, then you can ask them, hey, can I have your offcuts, right? Keep all the offcuts and then you can do little practices of different sizes and things like that. All right. Any other questions before we wrap up for today? Boom, boom, boom. I hope Facebook don't leave it like this. Okay. Would an acrylic primer be able to be used instead of gesso? Hubby is also a spray painter, so wondering if he could coat all the boards. I don't know, Kathy. I've only ever used gesso. So my advice would be to give it a try and see what happens, right? If the paint adheres to it all and it all looks fine when it's dry, then yeah, why not? But I haven't done it myself, so I can't say absolutely. All right. Boom, 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 boom. Leslie says, since switching to MDF, I don't like the surface of canvas. Now I prefer the board. Well, I think it's what you get used to, Leslie. I understand what you're saying. When you go back to a canvas, it can feel very different, But I think there's a time to use board and there's a time to use canvas. So boards are good up to a certain size. When you paint larger paintings, I definitely prefer canvas because, I like to be able to really use a lot of movement when I'm painting bigger canvases and I like the tension that you get on a canvas that you don't get on a board. So I think for me, the way I like to work is I like MDF board for smaller works up to about 16 by 20. And then beyond that, I prefer to get into canvas. So it really just comes down to your own personal preference. But I understand what you mean. When you start painting with boards, the canvases do feel weird when you go back to them. Sandra said, I switched to see you on your member live page where I can't comment on or see others' comments. What can I do to fix that? I'm not sure, Sandra. Are you on your mobile phone? It would be best to be on a desktop computer. So I'm not sure what actually the issue is there because it seems like the comments are working fine with lots of people commenting. So I'm not sure what issue you're having, I'm afraid. Morning shares. Night shift. That's no good. Carlo says, does it matter if you use a different paint brand to the gesso? No, I don't think it does, Carlene. However, I have found that there's a, like there is with paint, pardon me, big variance in quality. So if you use a poor quality gesso, then it may not be to your advantage. So I found the Artilia one to be the best, And if you buy cheap quality gesso, you just won't get good results from it. Sonia says, doing the first module in ABA, how many saleable paintings should we have ready before moving on to the next stage? However many you've got, Sonia. The first part was to take stock of your current inventory. If you've got 5 saleable paintings, that's great. If you've got 50, that's great. So it's just however many you've got. Once you work out what your saleable inventory is, the next bit is to then start producing new works, right? And you can hear my comments about that in the videos there. So whatever you've got is what you're going to start with. Don't just start into the process of now producing new work. Meryl said, I made a homemade gesso once with glue and I think plaster of Paris. I tried that once as well, and it just never got anywhere near as good a results. And whether it's acid free or not, I don't know. But yeah, it was just too much trouble for me personally. Valerie said, if you use a self-leveling acrylic product, do you use gesso over that? I've never heard of a self-leveling acrylic product, so I can't answer that question. I'm afraid, Valerie. Gary said, is there any advantage painting on wood like jazz art? No real advantage that I can see, Gary. It's just a hard surface. You'd probably want to gesso the jazz art boards. I know that they create like panels where they put a sort of a backing frame kind of thing, so you've got a little bit of thickness to hang off the wall. So they're good, but there's no advantage, I wouldn't have thought, over just MDF board gessoed. The reason why I started doing MDF board is I started following a number of Australia's best contemporary traditional landscape artists. Like John Wilson, Casey Seeley, guys like that, right? Coley Wisson, and they all used MDF board that they prepared and gessoed themselves. So that's what I started doing. I was just monkey see, monkey do, right? So that's not to say that's the right way or the only way. Oh, the other one is Ken Knight. He's my favourite Australian artist. He uses MDF board. So I just copied them. And so now I share it with you. But it's not necessarily the right way or a bigger advantage over other ways. I think a lot of these guys are probably, what would they be? Casey's late 50s, John would be in his 60s, maybe pushing 70. So they're in that age range where maybe when they started 40 years ago, that was the only option, maybe. I think Casey might use Masonite board now, but he used to use MDF. So yeah, I don't know I don't think there'd be any advantage apart from sometimes the jazz art ones have got the sort of framing around it. Do you paint before using the levelling agent? I don't know what a levelling agent is, Valerie, sorry. Tatiana says, I'm using Winsor & Newton acrylic. It seems I have to do underpainting to get colours saturated. That might be because you need to prepare the surface better, maybe another coat of gesso, because if what you're saying is you need to do an underpainting to get the colours more saturated with the finished product, that probably just sounds like it's absorbing into the surface the first coat or two, right? But it's always good to build up a painting in layers anyway. Jules saying that Facebook's not good to rely on when emergency warnings that came through. Yeah, I wouldn't rely on Facebook for much, really. It's good that they allow us to stream for free at the moment, but that'll change. Would the primer be acid-free? I think you're best to use everything acid-free if you can. I'll have to go and double check the primer that I use. So I imagine it would be. Julie says, I've never painted on really good canvas. It's probably nice. Yeah, there's a huge difference in quality of canvas, like everything in art supplies though. But a really good quality canvas. Now, I've never really used linen, so I can't comment on linen, but definitely with canvas, there's a massive difference between, you know, cheaper stretch canvas you buy in the $2 shop versus buying a roll of, you know, a heavy quality canvas. And so I've got a couple of rolls of that there. And yeah, it feels good to paint on, definitely. Big difference. Big difference. All right. Last chance to ask a question before we wrap it up. Wrap it up. I'll take it. Teresa said, lots of helpful tips from you, Rod, and the community. Yes. Thank you very much, Teresa. Gail said, thank you, Rod. Always learning something new. That's terrific. Thank you, Gail. Colin said, with the house paint for preparing MDF boards, would we need to paint that as an undercoat primer? Or I don't use house paint as such. I just use a primer or a sealer. I can't remember what exactly it's called. Well, let me go and have a look, just so we can, because there seems to be a few questions about this, so hang on for 1 second. This is the one I've been using. It's called Wash and Wear, and it's worked fine. Low sheen. I can't remember what the question was now. But I just cut it out the front and back, and gesso, 2 coats of gesso. So don't overthink it. I mean, just find something that works, and just keep doing that until you find that it doesn't work. Okay. Sonia said, found a couple of good books in the op shops, Australian Landscape Artists and Monet's Gardens. Fantastic. I often, especially up around here, go into all, and if you're in the Southern Highlands in New South Wales, around Bowral, places like that, right? Go to all the op shops and dig through the book section, because there's always good art books in places like that, and around here as well. So yeah, I'm often doing that. So good find, Sonia. Peter says, valuable lessons. Good on you, Peter. You too. Thanks, Gail. Thanks, Betcha. Is Doug related to Casey? Doug is Casey's uncle. Doug Seeley. Yeah, so it's his uncle. The Seeley family, there's quite a few good painters in the Seeley family there. Thanks, Sharon. Another great session. Have a restful weekend. You too. Okay. Sheree says, thank you, Rod. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you. You too. Linda said, hope your back stops misbehaving. Yes, it's getting there slowly. Thank you for a great coffee chat. You too. Sonia said, have learnt a few more things today. Thanks, Rod and everyone. Great community. Have a wonderful weekend. Long weekend here in Victoria. Yes, I think it's Queen's birthday, isn't it? Traditional Melbourne Collingwood game. Shez says, I use ceiling paint for a primer and gesso over the top. There you go. Sharon said, looks like we are really interested in MDF boards. Yes, this question comes up all the time, and varnishing paintings comes up all the time as well, which is great. Marie said, enjoy your weekend. Get healthy. I'm working on it, Marie. Thank you. Cheers, Colin. Thanks, Carolyn. My first time on a live stream coffee chat. Oh, good on you, Carolyn. Welcome. We're all glad you are here. Are these primers acid-free? I believe they are, Meryl. Yep. Otherwise, they'd eat through the wall of your house. Mark says, thanks so much, Rod. Thank you. Cheers, Carleen. Thank you, Manju. Why do I prepare both sides of the board? A couple of reasons. If you only prepare one side, it can bend and warp the board, but I also want to put a sealer on both sides to stop moisture getting into it. So just a much better practice. Teresa's asked, will you put on another challenge in the near future? Yes, I will, absolutely. I really enjoyed doing the last Unleash the Artist Within. And so I'm planning on doing an Unleash the Artist within number 2. And the date and timing of that is going to be dependent on, I've got to have a series of radiation treatment coming up soon. And it's going to be, I still haven't got dates and times for that. I have a meeting with the oncologist next week or the week after to find out all that. So it's going to depend on that. It may be that we'll do it, because it's about an 8-week treatment. So we may be able to run it during that time, but it might have to change. We may have to change the time that we live stream to later in the day, which will affect our folks in the UK and Ireland and so on, which would be a shame. But I'll keep you posted. So definitely in the works, and I've got ideas for other ones as well for later in the year. Thanks, Winnie. Thanks, Celine. And thank you, everyone. Thanks, Sonia. Yeah, me too. Don't know when, though. Do you paint the sides? I don't, but I know that Coley Wisson, one of Australia's great landscape artists, he uses a wax sealer. He's got a big thing of wax and he runs the sides along that and it seals it with wax. I don't do that. All right, friends, it is time for us to be out of here. Hope you all have a great day.